Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hey.
Hello.
Hey. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is J. Thomas Ryman.
And we just watched Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I am become guy who's seen Oppenheimer.
Now I am become dad, watcher of Oppenheimer.
We imagine a future. And our imaginings horrify us. They won't fear it until they understand it. And they won't understand it until they've used it.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
All the daddies.
All of the dads. There were many, many dads in the theater.
Yeah.
I saw this the earliest possible showing, 10:30 in the morning, filled with dads.
Was it packed?
It was packed.
That's cool. I want to start by talking about the theater experience because I stupidly, I got my tickets weeks ago, so I didn't know what kind of day we were going to have because we've had a full day. But I got tickets at the Chinese theater, the TCL Chinese theater in the main, the IMAX theater, the classic, 100-year-old theater, to see it on 70 millimeter IMAX. And I don't know if you Tom, you ever been to Hollywood? You ever try to navigate Hollywood?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, real trash experience. And so it's like, panic attack to get there and back. Even with plenty of time, it's just a garbage experience. And so I remember thinking, like, this might have been a mistake, right? It's a 3-hour-long movie. I'm in this crowded-ass theater. I was in, like, the front row area. Mm-hmm. I just want to say, great time. Movie aside, I had a great time. It was
Just
really, the seats were actually kind of good. Yeah, well, it was like the front area, not the front row.
I see.
And it just kind of made me feel good about movies, Tom, because it was literally like I'm sitting in the theater and there's like bros and like these 20-year-old kids, like of all ages, just like, oh yeah, Oppenheimer, we're going to sit down and watch this fucking movie. Yeah. People like chatting about it like it's a Marvel movie, and then everybody just shut up for 3 hours and watched basically JFK.
Essentially, yeah. This is JFK. It's not JFK.
Yeah, and it made me feel like I was in the 90s, where it's like when a movie like this would just be like a box office hit, where everybody would go watch Aaron Brockovich.
Right, it would be one of the top 5 films of the year.
Right, and I remember watching certain scenes that we'll talk about and being like, do these like bros around me, are they even enjoying this? And then everybody's filing out. Everybody fucking loved it. Everybody was talking about how much they loved the movie. That was essentially a series of hearings.
Yeah, that's really all it is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people talking.
Yeah, it just made me feel good where I'm like, okay, are we ready for this again? Are we ready for dad films to watch a bunch of boring ass films? Yeah, this movie's a lot of talking in IMAX, which no, you don't need. What would you say? Do you think this is worth seeing in IMAX?
I don't think you need to.
I'll say the sound was pretty fucking impressive.
I'm sure the sound would be impressive, and there's some of the shots would have looked cool, like some of the establishing shots or the landscape shots of like Los Alamos and things like that.
Yeah,
there's not much of a reason to see this in IMAX, that's for sure.
Those were the points, which is like landscape shots, like I'm watching a nature documentary.
Right.
That was it. Where I was like, ooh, that's kind of pretty in IMAX.
Yeah.
What did you think of this movie?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I'm a Heimer.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good movie. I think there's some stuff
Sure.
I've been seeing on the internet that we should talk about and address a little bit here and there. But
Okay.
I think generally speaking, this was a very good movie. I was scared that the marketing was going to piss off the audience watching the movie because, spoilers, a bomb goes off in one scene.
That's
and
not
the
what it's
rest is
about.
literally
It's really
people
not what it's
talking.
about.
It's not at all.
No.
It's not even about.
It's not
the
even
bomb.
about the making of the atomic bomb, really.
No.
I mean,
And
it documents that, sure, but it's about how when it's about a lot of things, but the main thing is when people in power need to demand answers from science and they don't like the answers that they get.
Yes. That is a big part of this.
COVID looms along over this, and many other
Absolutely.
things. Climate change.
But yeah.
And
the literal sense is about the politicians destroying Oppenheimer after the fact when he spoke up against the hydrogen bomb. One of the most, I thought, powerful scenes, not the bomb going off, surprisingly, is when they just leave with the bombs and they're like, we'll call you.
Yeah, and then they don't.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, and
that was it. That was
And
it.
it's
That's all he heard.
They just throw him out. You're done.
He doesn't even get to speak to the president until months later, it seems.
Right. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah. It's simply they just kind of crate him up and throw him on the back of the truck and off they go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. And then they pretty much all the scientists kind of just get cast aside.
Mm-hmm.
They do whatever afterwards. And Oppenheimer, of course, is famous because he's the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I feel like skipping around a lot because I literally I saw this 20 minutes ago.
Sure.
Yeah,
we can skip around a lot because the movie does too. It has two different timelines, but there's also flashbacks within each timeline. So he does a thing, Nolan does a thing where he keeps one timeline in color and one timeline in black and white. And it's not even really a timeline necessarily. It's whose point of view it is.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's an artistic reason, but there's also a logistical reason because it was just I appreciate this.
Yes, yeah, obviously, there is an artistic reason to do it, but it's also just a functional, a utilitarian reason to do it so that the audience doesn't get confused because it jumps around a lot.
Yeah,
but it is sort of they're briefly at the beginning. It's they title one view the color fission, I think, in black and white fusion. I think.
Oh yeah,
I might have it
backwards.
I think so.
No, I think it was that.
And the fusion one is in black and white, and it's from the point of view of Robert Downey Jr.'s character as he's getting ready to, as he's going through his hearing to get possibly appointed to the White House cabinet. I'm not sure who's president at this time. I guess Eisenhower.
I think so.
If it's in the I think it's not. Nolan does this thing a lot with...
It's not Gary Oldman anymore.
It's no longer Gary Oldman, Harry S. Oldman.
That was a surprise.
That was a real shock. Yeah, it was partway through that scene where I realized it was Gary Oldman.
Yeah, that's not the biggest shock. The biggest shock to me was me repeating several times to myself, is that Josh Hartnett?
It sure is.
Yeah. Fuck, and he's a major character.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I sort of. Oh right. It's he's going through his hearing to join the cabinet, and the color one is Oppenheimer going through his hearing to see whether or not he's going to retain his government clearance and whether or not he's going to be considered a communist. Basically, this is during the McCarthyism. So it is kind of weird because the color one is actually, in terms of when the events take place, that one's the one that's actually in the past. The black and white one with Robert Downey Jr.'s character is what is supposed to be contemporary to when the movie takes place.
I actually think that was the smart choice because I think he knew one, we were going to spend the most time in the other time, and it's well, that can't be all black and white. We want to see the nuke in color, don't we? But also that also signifies that is the prime timeline, meaning that.
Sorry.
What's interesting to me about this is it's about hindsight in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so putting the future in black and white is kind of making the future secondary, right, to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was just a smart idea with what they were,
and it's sort
doing
of
a fucking movie about.
And it sort of speaks to the binary thinking that he comes up against with all the government people who are like, well, we've got to build the bomb because Russia might build the bomb. And then Oppenheimer's trying to talk about nuclear agreements and disarmament and like a worldwide council on nuclear energy and stuff, like, to prevent the building of a hydrogen bomb. So there's that element of it too. And then there's also, I think, just because we're trained to do it, because we've been watching modern movies all our lives, and the majority of modern movies are in color. Seeing the two side by side, our minds will put more importance on the one that's in color. For
sure. And that's what he wanted. Yeah. By the way, I don't know how much you know about Oppenheimer. I don't know that much.
Not really anything.
Yeah, I'm taking this movie at face value for the record, and because that was one of the things the internet is doing, right? Which is like, well, actually, it's this, or well, actually, it's that.
It's a movie,
and I'm gonna take it at face value because I what they're presenting, whether or not it's true, is very effective of a story about a guy who feels forced to build this thing, but absolutely feels the weight of what he did, right? And I don't know if that's actually the case,
It seems to be, with his famous quotes, and that's sort of kind of and then obviously the position that he took afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Like one assumes. I just don't know.
I know
what's being left.
I know it's based on that biography, or I think it's a biography. It's based on a book called Modern Prometheus, or American Prometheus, I think. Yeah, American Prometheus. Modern. I'm thinking that's Frankenstein. Anyway,
right. I always want to make that distinction because as we talk about this movie, we'll be like, "And Oppenheimer does this and does that," and it's like I'm talking about the character.
Right, the character in the film.
Guess,
I understand
in the context of this film.
Events are streamlined and truncated, and everybody, the dialogue is made more movie, and people are probably fused together into characters for efficiency. And I'm sure they smoothed over some more unpleasant parts of his character and other more unpleasant parts of the story, probably. But yeah, we understand that. So if we're talking about the movie.
There's a lot of implied unpleasantness.
Yeah,
with Florence Pugh.
He fucks everyone, man. He cannot stop screwing around on his wife.
Yeah, I want to. So this is interesting to me. I don't know what to make of this. Like this was I saw this at the Chinese theater, so they do a person who comes out and goes like, here's Oppenheimer with all these people, and they list the cast. Didn't it list Emily Blunt? And like none of the marketing really lists her, but they lean on Florence Pugh. Yeah. And I thought that's weird.
Because she's popular right now. She's like,
but Emily Blunt is the actual like character that's in it a lot more. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Like the very interesting marketing for this movie. I think they like kind of snuck it in. Like they, again, everything was based around the bomb and the marketing. And then they were like, "Ooh, by the way, there's going to be a nude scene between these two," and they were really pushing that shit. And it's like, barely, there was no dong, there was no
nobody hangs dong. Nobody hangs dong.
Yeah,
yeah. And it's more,
interesting.
And then later on, it's revisited in an unpleasant way because it's like meant to
that
be
was cool.
Vulnerability and shame that he's like feeling during the hearing.
Yeah, so I was at first thinking when I got like halfway through this movie, I was wondering like, does this have to be 3 hours? And I think it did.
I did.
Right?
I didn't notice the length while I was watching it. It wasn't until I got out of the theater I was like, "Holy smokes!"
No, I mean like
I'm hungry.
I wasn't noticing the length, but I was like wondering. But like, they kind of had to spend like an hour setting up his vulnerabilities, right? His relationship with the communist. Campus group,
and labor unions,
daring to want to form a union,
the teachers' union, or a professors' union,
and then the relationship with Florence Pugh, and then they very bluntly
and then
show
kind of his
like,
ego, and then like he almost the first thing they show us him do is him almost poison his professor.
Yes, which I know it's a real thing he did. I felt like they didn't spend. It's like what they do to establish him, and it's weird because it doesn't feel fitting for his character, which is silly to say about a real person. That I know that's like one of the things I know he did. he didn't seem that cocky, I guess. They didn't make him out to be that arrogant in my mind.
He is, but like I think the apple is more like wanting to put the genie back in the bottle, like realizing the destructive force of, like, I'm not sure that necessarily would have killed him.
It's thematically relevant, right?
Yeah.
Which is that he does it and then he comes back the next day and quickly grabs the fucking apple and yeah. So like it's definitely thematically relevant, and again, it's a thing a guy
actually did. Yeah.
So I can't say it's out of character.
Right.
It's more just that the film, I don't know, it felt actually oddly out of place in the film, tonally for the character to me, but not a whole lot.
No, I think it demonstrates how he's able to. I think it demonstrates how he's able to intellectually separate himself from what it is he is doing.
Yeah, that's true.
Jason Clarke bullies him into it in the hearing scene where another atomic flash happens because he's getting pressured so much. But he basically bullies him into admitting that had he had an H-bomb to drop, he would have recommended a target that was big enough so that it was worth the drop.
Yeah, and that's. Do you think the movie does a good job with this? With the fact that he isn't innocent. And they are showing like his detachment, right? That is what the apple's supposed to be, and that is what like generally is happening, which is there's a point in this movie where it's just a goal. And they do a good job. Like I've seen some criticism of being like there's no like representation of the Japanese people.
I actually have a thought about that.
Me too. You go first.
Because he didn't.
Yes.
Like, because the whole idea of this movie is that he is divorcing himself from, he's treating it as an abstract or as a project. Like, they call it a gadget instead of a bomb while they're working on it.
Yeah.
They do, and like, he doesn't participate in the, like, a lot of the scientists really object to it being used as a weapon, and they're having like meetings about it on the facility at Los Alamos, and other. There were other research sites around the country. There's people up in Chicago, like Rami Malek and his guy, try to get him to sign this.
So many actors.
There's so many people who are in this movie for like 3 scenes. Tony Goldwyn's in it, yeah. Everyone's in this movie. Fucking
Jason Clarke, being a real Jason Clarke type.
Casey Affleck shows up as a terrifying murderer. So
yeah, he sure does.
He really slides right into that role.
Yeah.
Just an emotionless sociopath. But it's a big part of the movie's theme is about the fact that he is not facing up to the reality of this. And in point of fact, the movie never shows you any of the actual destruction of the bomb. Like, it shows him sitting in a theater where they're watching slides, and it doesn't show the slides. It just shows his reaction to it. And
I definitely want to talk about that. Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not saying it was the best thing to do, but I think it was done very intentionally to serve what this movie is about, and what the sort of turmoil of this character, of what he's facing. Yeah.
I'm sorry. My mind is swimming here because I just found something out about our cast.
Oh, sure.
So one of the cast members has been on our podcast, Tom.
Oh, yeah?
James Urbaniak is in this film.
He is?
Yeah.
Who was he?
I don't know. I'm going to have to watch it again.
I missed him.
Friend of the show, James Urbaniak, is in this movie. So that's fucking weird.
So anyway, what was your thought on that?
So, okay. So before going into this movie, I actually thought in my mind, it would be, neat's the wrong word. I didn't think they were going to show the bomb drop, right? That's in bad taste.
I really did
Nobody wants to see that.
I would have been really disappointed in the film had they done that.
No, that would have been fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Also, I knew that he did this he says all practical, and I would believe it's all practical having watched the film from beginning to end.
Yeah.
There's stuff like his weird atomic fusion fantasies. I know movies like The Fountain did that with certain water tank effects that they could probably do for this. Like the cosmic shit, the atom shit.
Yeah.
And the explosion itself, it's not to scale.
It's kind of abstracted.
Yeah, I want to talk about that scene.
Which I thought
obviously.
was really, I thought it made it that much more powerful, because when it was done, I did have this feeling of holy shit.
That's what I guess. That's I'll say it now is like. That was the scene where I was like, oh, I wonder if the bros in the audience are disappointed because everybody wanted to see a bomb go off.
Right, everybody wanted to see the bomb go off.
It's a small scene. And then I was listening to the same bros. They're like, dude, I teared up during that scene.
Right, yeah.
Because it doesn't show much. It's how the editing, the weight on the screen is really fucking well done. That, like, it's not a big explosion on screen.
No.
And it's on in nighttime, so it doesn't really look like much. And it didn't matter. It was fucking heavy. Of course it was. But so like I was imagining, like, what if they did an Oppenheimer movie where they kept cutting back to Japan? And like before while the bomb was being made, to like families there, or like one kid there, like showing like, yeah, these are the people that are going to die. Right. And I'm sure some people thought, like, why didn't... Yeah, I think some people expected that, right? Some sort of reminder of, like, these are the people he's killing by doing this. But I think it was the right decision ultimately to do what he did, because it's exactly what you're saying, which is that he didn't see those people.
No, and
he's not thinking of those people.
Yeah.
And they don't want us to think about those people. And then there is a moment in this film, which I thought was very well done, where it all hits him like a bomb. After the bomb gets tested, he's doing the like we did it speech, and he just basically they simulate a panic attack, right?
Yeah.
Where like they do things like the audience is cheering, but we can't hear them anymore.
We hear them
but,
stand
like,
up, but we can't hear their claps or their cheering. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear. Yes, that's what's really cool. You can hear like other sounds in the room.
Yeah.
But not the clapping. And then he starts seeing things like their face peeling off. He looks down and he's stepped in a charred body. And it's like this moment where it hits him. And again, I don't know what actually happened. I don't know what's in his heart, in his long dead heart. But like for the character that we're watching on screen, it was a very effective way of showing like he's basically been like, it's been abstract in his mind
right
until this moment, and then it becomes really fucking real. And then having him not look at the slides like a coward was really effective too.
He couldn't face it.
Yeah. And so that's like I thought it was a good way of doing it, because it doesn't feel like the movie glosses over it.
No, it
at
really
least to
doesn't.
me.
I didn't get that impression at all. That's just me. Go ahead.
Oh, I think I was like, Nolan has this tendency to be like, he's obsessed with the tech stuff. He's a bit of an Oppenheimer himself, you could argue, right? Where it's like, I was scared that he'd face this movie with a certain cold detachment that he didn't, Right.
I would have been disappointed if it was, I wouldn't have been disappointed. It would have been a much less good, less effective movie if it had just been about the Manhattan Project and the construction of the bomb. But that's really not what it's about. It really is this character study.
Yeah, and it's a lot more emotional. And I mean, for the record, Nolan understands that stuff. I do think there's certain things that he kind of gravitates towards, I've noticed, which is like troubled genius who burns through women.
Yep.
This reminded me of The Prestige, weirdly enough.
Sacrificing women at the altar of his own ambition. Like, that's a pretty recurrent theme in Nolan's films.
And he's not praising these people, but he's also centering his lens on them, right?
Yes.
In a way. So he is, in a way, praising them as like these scientific minds who are above the pleasantries of like humanity in this weird way. But again, this feels like him being kind of aware of that.
At least somewhat, for sure, because
at least somewhat, yeah.
He's presenting this character of Oppenheimer. I don't know how I'm not talking about the real man, like we said, as a guy whose back is against the wall. Like, he's like, well, look, all of us quantum physicists had to flee Germany so most of us are Jewish, and so he's in America, where he's American, but he had been in Cambridge or not Cambridge. He had been overseas doing some kind of study. he's in a position where it's like, well, I know the Germans have all of these great scientists because I've met with them and I've read their work. I know them. Like, we were friendly with each other, you know? So he's like, I know the Germans can build this bomb, and they are and they find in the news that they actually have they've got like an 18 months head start on it. So at one point, like, he's on the project because he's like, look, I understand this is not what I would like to do, but I understand this has to be done. And there's one point where his friend, David Krumholtz, is like, I don't think I can be on this project because I don't want the sum total of physics and all the work that I've done and all of our friends and colleagues have done. I don't want the culmination of that to be a weapon of mass destruction.
Right.
And he basically says to Krumholtz, he's like, well, I don't know if we can trust America with this weapon, but I know we can't trust the Nazis with this weapon. So it's like he's a guy who is being asked to do an impossible thing and make an impossible decision to do that thing. So he has an aptitude for it because he's this brilliant person who just doesn't. He's able to. He's so in his own mind anyway that he's very easily able to be cold and detached from everything. So he just turns that part of his brain off, and then it just the weight of it. Like, as the movie goes on, he just cannot keep the weight of what he's actually doing out until it just breaks in, and they simulate it with like another atomic flash. Anyway. Yeah,
it's very their use of sound in the atomic flash, the use of the bleachers sound, which comes like early in the movie, and you don't know what it signifies, and it signifies that moment of, I guess, intense guilt.
It's when
he realizes what he did,
the achievement of his goal. It's like a countdown.
The use of sound,
and it also it's sort of, you hear it in the trailers. It kind of sort of sounds like they describe the reaction as particles colliding faster and faster and faster in a chain reaction until ultimately it can't be stopped. So you can kind of imagine that that's what it sounds like. So it's building up to the explosion. Right.
And of course, a lot of this is about a thing that can't be stopped.
Yeah.
I think it was helpful because focusing on the witch hunt against him, the communism stuff, is sort of also showing it's like you said, it's a very good look at like rejection of science and scientists and, some very modern things, but it also shows why it's so scary to have nukes in this world. It's a scary world with scary people, who are making very stupid decisions. And this film ultimately ends on, and it was very smart, like the Einstein whole thing where he goes to Einstein to be like, we have these calculations that like, it might blow up the world. It might create a chain reaction that won't stop. Light the atmosphere on fire. And they mean very literally. You see it in the trailers. Matt Damon is like, there's a chance this will blow up the world. And of course it doesn't. And then there's this whole, and I want to talk about the Nolan of it all, where Nolan can't help but to do like twists.
Yeah.
Plot twists still, which is very funny. But there's this scene early where he talks to Einstein and Einstein walks away all sad. And you keep wondering, like, what did he say to Einstein? And what we find out at the very end, what he said to him is, we did start that chain reaction, didn't we? Like, whether or not, we did
end the world.
Yeah, it's just a slower chain reaction than we thought.
Yeah, and
of course, then they show like a shot of modern nukes, and then the world just on fire, essentially.
Yep.
And then the movie fucking ends, and you're like, fuck, man.
Shit. Yeah. I love that. I actually kind of I really liked that. I think I loved it, but I really thought it was effective. It does have a little bit of like a prestige feel to it, but like I liked that. It was the moment where, because initially he's friends with Robert Downey Jr., who's, I forget his name, Seals?
It is, shit, I had his stupid name,
Strauss, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Louis Strauss.
He's like friendly with them. And then it's like, that's the first moment in the film where we kind of see like a friction in their relationship, is when he's taking him to introduce him to Einstein. And he's like, oh, I've already met him. So immediately he's kind of like a little like, oh, all right. And then he's leading him out there to introduce him. and Oppenheimer gets there ahead of him, and he can see that he and Einstein are talking for a bit, and Einstein leaves and is passing him, and he says, "Hi, Albert, how you doing?" And Einstein is just dour and walks right past him. So for the whole rest of the movie, it keeps coming back to it, but it seems kind of like a funny gag, but it's actually the core of Strauss's character, where it's like he's convinced that they were talking about him, and that's like Oppenheimer must have said something to this guy who was my friend Einstein that I admire, and he doesn't, he rebuffs me.
Right. It wasn't about him.
It wasn't about him at all. It never was. And that's like, it's kind of Strauss was not able to see beyond his own ambition, I guess, is the way that they're, and Oppenheimer, I guess, eventually was. Like it's does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It would have been so funny, by the way, if he leaned into Einstein and said, "I fucked your old wife," and that was what he told him.
He just weeps back to his lab. But no, I thought so. Using that to bookend the movie to just confirm that, like, it, because a little bit before that we get introduced to this, like, I think Alden Ehrenreich, who is also in this movie.
Yeah,
I think doesn't he say this to him or oh no, wait. Oppenheimer says it to him, where he says it was never about you.
Yes. Well, one of them does.
One of them does.
Sure.
Yeah. So so we have that idea in our head, and then bookending it with that Einstein moment to just drive it home. It's like it was never about. And that.
Strauss.
Yeah.
I feel like that the use of Strauss and the twist. Again, the twist is that Strauss is trying to destroy Oppenheimer, and at first you think that like the whole time we're following Strauss, he's trying to figure out who screwed Oppenheimer, who leaked his FBI file to this guy, etc. And then of course the reveal is like he did it.
Yeah.
And it is all like political, and he's just mad at Oppenheimer.
And it's over like a very slight wound, which is like echoes of Donald Trump at the presidential. At the press dinner, right? Isn't that what it was?
Press dinner, you could argue, started it. Yes, but by the way, this movie hardly, like, it does reflect that stuff, but I wouldn't say it's saying anything about modern politics.
It's more generally about this thing that is observable in systems of power like this.
It's about this horrific power in the hands of petty men. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it really
petty,
good
ambitious men.
Yeah, at the end of him saying, like, yeah, we did destroy the world, the movie does make a solid case just using Oppenheimer's life. Doesn't even have to use anybody else's life to show, like, yeah, just this dude, the guy who invented the bomb, the things that happened to him is proof that we shouldn't have the bomb.
Yeah.
And so that's a very fucking effective use of this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, he's imperfect, and like, there's definitely a conversation about that of like they're showing he's a bastard, but it's like
they don't really dwell on it.
Florence Pugh's character kills herself, and it feels like she's kind of. He's moving around pieces to show how Oppenheimer's affected by it without, like, I never really got to know how she felt, like why she really did it. You know what I mean?
Or how she felt about him, like their relationship is really, like, she hates that he brings her flowers, but she does want him to come when she calls, but she also doesn't. But we never learn anything about her. Like, it's a hard criticism, because it's like, well, it's not about. I don't even remember what her
person.
Name was. Honestly,
but it's tough. It's kind of a tough pill to swallow. But again, the idea, it's about Oppenheimer, so it's showing like the destructive force he is in his personal life.
Yeah,
but it did feel like they didn't do enough work for me to feel like I understood where she was coming from.
Yeah,
and it felt a little friggy, to be honest.
His wife is another confounding character.
His wife, I think they spent more time on her, so she was a little better.
But I would have liked. I
like
more.
The ending where she doesn't shake the guy's hand. I like that she didn't forget.
And I like that. I like that she traps Jason Clarke.
Yeah.
Like there's this.
I like that entire scene.
Yeah, there's this whole build up where like. Jason Clarke's just been a typical Jason Clarke character where he's just a fucking ogreish monster in this hearing.
Right.
And he's going to interrogate her now. And she's like really upset because they just went through a bunch of people not only attacking them, but also she had to relive like all of his philandering and shit. So she seems like
Right.
on the verge of tears, and for like the first couple of questions, she's like really, it seems like she's cowed. So she kind of like lures him in. Like he almost like licks his lips. Like he's like,
Yeah.
he like inches close, like, I really got her. Like, like he thinks
a
he's
real
gonna,
Jason Clarke.
but then
Yeah.
she's, springs the trap on him basically and just rips him apart. And it's really fun. But like, I would have liked to know where
wanted
that
to get to
came
know
from. Yeah.
her.
Like get to know her a little bit more. Cause like, her husband before that went off to fight in the Spanish Civil War and was killed. It's like and she had been married even before that, and it was like, man, she has
Yeah.
this whole life that we don't know anything about. But again, the same thing that we were talking about with not seeing the bombing or not seeing anyone in Japan. It was you could
hard to
argue
know
that it's intentional.
how to balance it.
Yeah, but it's also a problem because Nolan is sort of one of the things he gets pinged for a lot is the way that he underwrites his women characters.
And I think we got that here too.
Yes.
Again, they feel more like pieces to be moved around
Props.
in order to make him feel something.
Correct. They feel like props.
And I definitely sort of got that vibe. I do like, when the answer tells you like one day they're going to give you medals and act like it's for you, but it's really for them. And that's when she doesn't shake the guy's hand.
Yeah.
And I like that she was his outrage for him.
Well, she's not playing
Emily
the game.
Blunt character. Yeah.
She's not playing the game that he is.
But there wasn't enough. And I'm thinking about this movie and I'm like, did we really need like a lot of Jack Quaid? Like, did we need...
He's not in it that really. He's like in 3 scenes.
I know. But that's what I'm like. I wonder if it's that they kind of focused on all the scientists in a way, and it's like I don't know. They didn't matter as much. Ultimately,
I don't really.
It's hard.
I don't really
mean,
agree that they
of,
focus on them that much. Like, there's a bewildering number of them. They kind of go in. Like we said earlier, actors go in and out of the movie.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to focus on, but it's more just that it felt like the two women in his life they needed to focus on more.
Well, and then there's like a surprise third woman at the end that they reveal. They sort of hint before, but then they reveal definitely at the end that he's been sleeping with her as well, and she was the wife of one of the scientists on the project.
Yeah, and again, I get it. He has a dirty dick.
Yeah, he's just a.
But it's almost to me. It was like. I don't know. If you're not going to spend enough time, then don't spend any time on it. But you can't. It is definitely a delicate balance. And I know that like 3 hours is literally the limit for IMAX, I'm pretty sure. So I feel like he did a lot of his editing based on that.
Mm-hmm.
Where, and I mean, come on. It doesn't need to be more than 3 hours. But there's just a.
And I think it's better than not mentioning it.
Yeah, it's just it's the same problem as before. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the women are underwritten. And when it's like, this guy kind of burning through women and
giving literally giving his kid away for a period.
Yeah.
It's like in terms of that and showing of how he's just destroying his personal life and how he's just kind of a terrible friend in general to the people around him. I think it's better to mention that stuff than not, for sure. But
and you don't really feel it that much, I guess. But I guess
it's more. It does feel more like kind of ticking off like a litany of like his flaws.
Yeah,
and this is a fucked up thing he did, and this is a fucked up thing he did. But they really breeze past him leaving his kid with another family.
Right, and I sort of get it because there's like one really big thing he did that was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
So
you
got to focus on that thing.
Yeah.
What was with the scene where Einstein just came out of the night? Sorry.
Which was
you remember that scene? The guy drove away, and then Einstein just came out of the darkness and started talking to him. It was he was talking to someone outside his house, and the guy gets in the car, drives off, and then Einstein approaches him. I'm not crazy. This scene happened because several people in the audience laughed when it happened because he just lurches out of the night and it's just like, Einstein.
Is it at the end when...
I don't know. No, it's not at the very end.
When Strauss and fucking Dane DeHaan had come to his house.
Right, Dane DeHaan's in
Dane
this.
DeHaan's in this, playing a real Dane DeHaan.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. So I have one critique. One moment where... he decides to do the Joker for JFK. That pinged me, where they're like, except for one nobody senator who spoke up again, or spoke up. Who's this guy? Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And then they move on. I was just like, what, am I supposed to clap right now?
Yeah, what is this, the fucking Avengers Initiative? It's like, it's like Billy Zane saying Picasso, he'll never amount to anything. Like, I understand, like, I'm sure that's true. Like, I'm sure that's accurate.
Yeah, of course.
But, like, you didn't need to build it up like that.
It definitely felt like a clap moment.
It was a
and
real
it was
clap
just very
moment.
funny to me. Yeah. I really wanted them to like be like, he left his calling card, and it's like a Joker card, but it says Kennedy.
Just a picture of Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very silly. That was, again, there's a little bit of Nolan in this where it's like, oh, you can't help yourself sometimes.
No, he can't. He's still the same guy. I mean,
but of course.
He's gotten more mature for sure, but and in some ways, I mean, Tenet was a mess.
Yeah, Tenet was a mess.
Tenet was a real piece of shit.
No, but the thing that really impressed me still, and we haven't talked about that much, was the atomic bomb test.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's not a big part of the film, but the way he handled it, I thought he was going to really Nolan that up. And he
really doesn't.
It felt more like old school Nolan. It felt more like Memento era Nolan. It felt smaller in scale, where he wasn't trying to impress us.
It actually reminded me of Insomnia, because we only see the murder really in abstract in Insomnia.
Yeah.
And also he plays a lot with that because of Al Pacino being tired. But yeah, so it reminded me of that, yeah.
It's what it is that I was wondering watching this movie, is Nolan going to read the room? And, like, for example, James Cameron made a movie called Titanic, and Titanic read the room as much as it needed to, right? But he couldn't help having a guy ping off of a propeller and pinwheel into the water,
right? Because he's James Cameron.
Right, but because Titanic was so fucking long ago, nobody was, like, that upset, right? It was the right... You could, I guess you could argue this back and forth, but I thought it was the right amount of reverence for the Titanic while also getting to, like, be James Cameron about it.
Right, while also getting to have Billy Zane chase them with a pistol through the sinking Titanic.
Exactly. So the question with the bomb going off was like, how Nolan, is he going to have restraint? Is he going to be like, I want this to be awesome? And I really
is he going to do like a Doc Brown thing where they're trying to reconnect the electrodes or something in time before the bomb drops?
Just the way he shoots it.
Yeah.
Like, is he going to shoot it in a way of like, check it out, I did this? And that was what was so impressive about it, is like it wasn't shot to show off the effect. I guess is what I'm saying. It was focused on the characters and on how surreal the moment was, and how how dreamlike it is. And I thought they just did a really good job where, like, for example, the lead up to it going off, you don't really like feel it that much, because it's almost very casual, where you're like, oh shit, they're doing it now.
I guess we're doing it. Yeah, I guess we're doing it. Fuck, all right.
It's that where they show the storm and they're waiting for the storm to let up. Yeah, and then they're like, okay, it's let up, let's get this going. And you expect like a way more of a like treating it with this big like dramatic reverence, where like we're saying, this movie isn't really about the bomb. It's about the consequences of the bomb.
Yeah.
And so the bomb itself isn't treated like the big event. It probably happens right before the third act.
Right. There's
like,
still a whole.
It happens like.
There's still like a whole 40 minutes of this movie after the bomb test is successful.
Right, and it's not the big revelation or the big like this is the thing. And so like it did feel very restrained, and like he had sort of an understanding of, he read the room a bit in terms of like how to treat the actual explosion. And it's, I don't know, I can't wait to watch it again and like really analyze what he did with it. But it was really cool. And of course, you see the bomb go off and then you hear the sound well after, and that was really cool. Yeah, when
the force actually hits them.
Yeah, the sound. And I think it's all about shockwaves, right? And it's all about this idea of like
ripple effects. Yeah, like he's
ripple effects.
Looking at the pond at the end. Yeah.
And at the beginning, the first thing we see is a pond or water splashing in a puddle. And so it's this idea of like this thing, it's already happened. and then I know this is just also how bombs go off.
Yes, yeah.
But I think he like stretched it out and he emphasized that concussion that happens afterwards, because that's kind of what the whole movie is, right?
Yeah, he explored all angles of that metaphor, pretty much.
Yeah, he did a really good job with using the bomb itself as a metaphor for what the bomb did, which is a very simple
It's a simple metaphor, but it's done very, very effectively.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of different, he does a couple of different, like we were saying, angles of it.
Yeah, like the pond ripples, the puddle ripples, you realize also symbolizes like the ripples of nukes going off everywhere.
And
in
also
Oppenheimer's mind.
The ripples through time of what they've done, of course.
Yeah,
exactly. We use every part of the cow with this
he
metaphor.
used every part of the metaphor, yeah. And he did it well, and then I think it was just really smart to focus on the communist stuff, because then it highlights the other half of it, which is like that was the whole thing, which is like I was scared this was going to be Go America, and I didn't think it was going to be, but I was scared like the audience was going to get that out of it, or people were going to ironically watch it. But it's like, again, people just watched it seriously, like, yeah, that was a big deal.
It very
like,
much is not a
stuff.
Go America movie. It's
And
not like a Boo America movie necessarily,
No.
but it's not a Go America movie, that's for sure.
And it was just neat how the audience really felt it. It felt like while I was watching it, it did a very good job at
it was good as hell.
not making nukes out to be good in any way.
No,
and
it's
I think a big part of that was filming the nuke scene in a way that like it's not shot from multiple angles. It's not like it's just this fucking explosion in the darkness, and it doesn't really look like much.
It seems like a hallucination, almost like you said. It's real.
Yeah.
It's surreal.
It's from the perspective of the people watching it, which is really important too.
Yes, yeah. Because that's kind of that's the whole movie, right? It's just it's locked to the perspective of the people who witnessed a specific thing.
Yeah, and so just that as a very definitive look of like the consequences of the atom bomb being made. It's like, yeah, you did a damn good job. There's certain things like I said, like the Florence Pugh character, it's not perfect.
No.
The movie's certainly not perfect, but it's very effective in what he was trying to do in a way that I think was pretty respectful.
I think so.
I think that's up for debate, obviously.
I don't feel like it was exploitative. In that.
No, it certainly wasn't. But I'm sure everybody has their own views and opinions on this film. But I was just scared he was going to get. I guess it was. I was scared it was going to be about the logistics of making the bomb without thinking about the consequences of the bomb.
And they don't do that. Like, it doesn't become like a real jokey, hey, we're building a bomb, and then like they don't treat it like Iron Man perfecting his suit. Like it is not that tone at all.
Yeah, here's what I was fully expecting, for better or for worse, and they don't have in the movie at all, and this surprised me. There's no scenes where they're sitting around being like, well, I think there's one brief scene, but there's no scenes where they're like, how do we solve this? Oh, let's do this. It's not Apollo 13, right?
No.
Where they're like trying to solve puzzles, and they're showing like people running through hallways like, I got it. I figured it out.
Right.
I fully expected there was be some of that. The bomb just gets made in the background of the movie.
It does, because he's not... However you feel about how he treats the protagonist, the main character, he's not making a movie that's like trying to goose these guys' ego for how clever they are. Like, he's not showing how clever they are at solving problems or anything like that.
They actually never show Oppenheimer do anything to make the bomb.
Nope,
really.
Not really.
He just sort of directs other people.
Right.
And then we have other scenes with him. And again, the bomb just gets made around him. It almost implies that he didn't do much to create the bomb.
And yet, he takes all of the credit. In addition to the burden, but he does take all of the credit.
Yeah, and so that was impressive. The fact that it wasn't like, but how did they?
Yeah.
Who came up with this? Who came up with the triggering device that would do this? Like, what is it? There's none of that.
Yeah, that would have been gross. That would have been insensitive.
Right, but I thought even if they treated it with respect, I fully expected a little of that. A little like, here's how they put it together. Here's how they did it. Very, very little.
Yeah.
They have one conversation about like the ignition device.
Yes.
And that's about it.
Pretty much it, yeah.
And it's more relevant about the hydrogen bomb. Like the stuff that they do include is about someone theorizing a hydrogen bomb.
Right. That the point of that scene is that it ends in that guy Teller suggesting the possibility of a hydrogen bomb, and because that
that's
becomes
actually the point.
whole point of the movie, is building a bigger bomb than even what they're trying to do.
So it's so weirdly and they don't even treat the bomb with like a scary reverence. It's just a thing. That's sort of the point. The point is that they're not thinking about it. They're not considering it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and then they keep calling it a gadget, like I mentioned. But I do think there is, I thought it was scary. And as the person watching it, and most people that watch this movie probably won't have a huge grasp of physics on this level. But I sure don't. So like when they're assembling it, like in this sort of scene, the kind of montage that's leading up to the test, as they're putting it together, and then you see Oppenheimer go out and stand and look at the finished device, you don't understand what you're looking at. Like they have this ball and they're putting all these wedges around it. It looks like a bloomin' onion. And then they put this other stuff on
testicle.
it. Yeah, and then they lower like the uranium, I think, in there, or plutonium. I know they used both in the. Anyway, they lower the radioactive shit in there, and then you see the device, and it's just this giant like bathysphere looking thing with all these wires sticking out of it, and I don't understand what any of it does or how it works. It just made it. It's like seeing alien buildings, like an alien city. You know what I mean? Like you just don't understand what any of these things do or what they are, and it even the bomb even has like weird angles to it, like it looks alien and scary, like because I don't understand how it works at all.
They don't care to explain it to us
and they never do.
That's not the point of the movie.
Yeah,
and that's important because I really was scared he'd be obsessed with like I want to talk about how the bomb was made and the logistics, and it's like no, he knew obviously. No, that doesn't matter. That's not the story here. And that was I remember first hearing about this movie and going like, what the fuck is this story even going to be about? Just like nerds inventing a bomb? Like who gives a shit, right? And he clearly focused on the right stuff. I contend that he could have the communism stuff, like he could have technically used anyone, but obviously he used Oppenheimer. And what I'm saying from that is like he focused on the right stuff with Oppenheimer to make the message he made, which is like, I'm sure there was a lot of things in his life. I don't even know how much this like the communism stuff, how much of his life that made up. But it was the right thing to focus on, and he knew it to the point that he put the bomb itself on the back burner to, get the result that we got. And so, I think great job. Also, James Remar's in this.
He sure is. Matthew Modine.
That was Matthew Modine. We talked about Modine, right?
Did we? Oh, no,
I don't remember.
Who can say everyone's in this movie?
Yeah, so I liked it. I didn't love it, but I think that's just because I was never going to love a movie about Oppenheimer. Like this is definitely. I thought it
was really effective. I really enjoyed it.
That's what I'm saying. It was very effective. It was really good. I just mean and I love me a thriller, and a political nerd ass dad film. I'm just saying that like a 3-hour Oppenheimer movie, I liked. I don't. It's not like I'm not going to keep watching it a bunch of times. Does that make sense? Like I really liked it. I think it's a very good movie. I'm more excited to watch Barbie, I guess. But
sure,
it's just because this is,
Barbie will definitely be more fun.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's very good.
Yeah, I thought so.
I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I think we've exhausted the topic.
Yeah. Oppenheimer, check it out. If you heard of it, little film, going around,
small film.
Yeah.
Small independent picture.
Mm-hmm. The fucking cast.
Everyone is in this movie, man. Yeah. So many people.
Well, every actor. Not so much actresses, but a lot of swinging dongs.
Yeah.
It's a sausage party.
They'd have the lady from Dredd in it, Olivia Thirlby.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She's one of the she's the one scientist that is like speaking at the meeting at Los Alamos, where they're doing the meeting about we don't want to drop the bomb on Japan.
Good.
Like,
good for her.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's like 3 actresses in it. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, it's a meat fest.
That's
Just
our
a fucking
Chris Nolan.
Dick salad.
Real dick salad, yeah. Brought a dick salad to this pool party.
We have a Patreon. Should we talk about our Patreon?
We should talk about our Patreon.
Patreon.com/GameFullyUnemployed. We got exclusive podcasts on there, like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons. I don't think we'll watch Oppenheimer. I always like to weigh in on whether or not we'd watch the We Just Watched movie.
Probably not.
I don't think it's an Oppenheimer.
It's a little too
vibe.
heavy. Yeah, it's just not one you want to sit and like chat with your buds.
We did watch Microwave Massacre recently.
We did.
And that's like Oppenheimer.
It is.
You know?
It is. It's about a man who gets a power that nobody should have, which is a giant microwave.
Yeah.
And an insatiable thirst for human flesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
We also have a store. Should I move on to that?
I just realized we didn't even talk about Mr. Matt Damon and his mustache.
We didn't. Matt Damon is great in this movie.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's a real Matt Damon
It's a
type.
solid
though.
Matt Damon character, yeah.
Yeah.
He really slides really easily into general.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, when he's like, I'm general, I was like, I don't believe that. I'm sorry, Matt.
Yep. And they make his mustache slightly longer, and you're like, okay, I can see the wizened mustache of a general.
Yeah.
We have a store. Head over to GameFullyUnemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your open peepers on that. Opie peepers?
Yeah. Open
Oppie peepers.
Oh.
They call them Oppie, not Opie.
Oppenizers?
Yeah, there you go.
Oppenizers.
There it is.
Slap.
We got there.
Well, yeah. In a way, we built our own bomb.
Yeah,
here.
we did. In a way.
Yeah.
In a way, we just destroyed the world.